The morning sun spilled golden light over the grand mansion on the hill. Birds sang somewhere in the distance, but the place itself was silent, too silent, almost heavy with loneliness. A small, battered bus stopped by the front gate. From it stepped a woman, simple clothes, tired eyes, but a quiet strength in the way she held herself. Her name was Aira. She stood for a moment, staring at the mansion. It was enormous, marble steps, tall glass windows, and manicured gardens that looked like they belonged to another world. Her heart pounded. She clutched her old handbag tightly, whispering under her breath, "You can do this, Aira. It's just cleaning." For her, this job meant survival. After losing her husband in an accident 2 years ago, she'd been raising her little daughter alone. But when her daughter fell ill, Aira had to leave her in her sister's care in the countryside while she came to the city, desperate for work. And today was her first day in the mansion of Mr. Mehta, one of the most powerful businessmen in the city. When she rang the bell, a tall man in a dark suit opened the door, the head butler. He looked her up and down, a bit skeptical. "You're the new cleaner?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Aira Sharma." "Follow me. And don't touch anything you're not supposed to." She nodded silently, stepping inside. The interior was breathtaking, wide hallways, polished floors, elegant chandeliers, and paintings that probably cost more than she could earn in a lifetime. But it all felt cold. Like a house without laughter. As she cleaned the living room, she noticed something, children's toys scattered near the sofa. A small car, a teddy bear missing one ear, and a coloring book half open. Her heart softened instantly. But there was no sound of a child anywhere. Hours passed. Aira moved from one room to another, carefully dusting and mopping. When she reached the hallway near the study, she heard a faint sound, a whisper, a shuffle, like tiny feet. She turned around slowly. A small boy, no older than 4, stood at the corner. Big brown eyes. Soft hair. A beautiful, quiet face. He was staring right at her. Aira smiled gently. "Hey there," she said softly. "What's your name?" The boy didn't respond. He just watched her, clutching a small stuffed bunny. "It's okay," she said, kneeling down to his level. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm just cleaning." He tilted his head slightly, still silent. Then, suddenly, he walked closer. Step by step. Until he was right in front of her. And then, very softly, he whispered one word that made Aira freeze. "Mommy." Her eyes widened. "What did you say?" The butler rushed in at that very moment, looking shocked. "Rihan," he exclaimed. "You spoke." The little boy turned, his eyes filling with tears. He dropped his bunny and ran upstairs, disappearing into one of the rooms. Aira was still on her knees, stunned. The butler stared at her like she was some kind of miracle. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice trembling, "that boy. Rihan, he hasn't spoken a word since his mother died 2 years ago." Aira felt a chill run down her spine. Later that evening, when Mr. Mehta returned home, the air in the mansion seemed to change. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and a face that carried both authority and sorrow. He greeted no one. Just walked straight in, silent as stone. The butler hesitated, then told him everything, how Rihan had spoken for the first time in years, how he'd called the new cleaner Mommy. Arav's expression froze. "What?" he said sharply. "Yes, sir," the butler whispered. He spoke. Airav turned his head toward the staircase, where Rihan stood peeking, his small hands gripping the railing. "Rihan," Airav said softly, walking to him. "What happened today?" The boy looked at his father, then pointed downstairs toward the cleaning room. "At Aira." Airav followed his son's gaze. Their eyes met for the first time, the millionaire and the cleaner. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The next morning, Aira almost didn't return. She thought about quitting. She didn't want trouble, didn't want to upset anyone. But something inside her, a strange, motherly pull, made her go back. When she entered, Rihan was already waiting near the stairs, holding a crayon in his tiny hand. He looked at her, eyes bright with hope. She smiled. "Good morning, little one." He smiled back. A silent smile, but a powerful one. From that day, Aira's work changed. She was no longer just a cleaner. She became part of Rihan's world, sitting near him as he drew pictures, humming lullabies as she dusted shelves, gently talking even though he didn't respond. Sometimes, she caught her watching from a distance, unreadable expression on his face. Days turned into weeks. Rihan began to follow her around the house. One day, he tugged at her sari and handed her a drawing. On it, he had drawn 3 stick figures, a tall man, a small boy, and a woman holding hands with both. Underneath, he'd written, clumsily but clearly, Mommy. Tears filled Aira's eyes. She didn't know whether to smile or cry. That night, when everyone was asleep, Aira knocked on her small staff room door. His face was tense, his eyes tired. I don't know what you've done, he said quietly, but my son hasn't smiled like this in years. Aira stood silently. He continued, ever since his mother died, he shut the world out. No words, no laughter. We tried therapists, specialists, but nothing worked. And now, one day after you come here, he speaks. I didn't do anything, sir, Aira said softly. Maybe he just needed someone to see him. For a moment, something in Aira's eyes softened. Then he nodded. Keep working here. As long as you want. As weeks passed, an invisible bond grew stronger. Aira found herself healing too, through Rihan's laughter, through his tiny hugs, through the quiet joy in that house that had once felt lifeless. One afternoon, as they played in the garden, Rihan suddenly spoke again, clear and happy. Mommy, look. Butterfly. Aira froze. The gardener nearby gasped. And from the balcony, Aira watched, emotion clouding his face. He realized something that day, that maybe, sometimes, miracles don't happen through money or medicine. They happen through kindness. Through love. But not everyone in the mansion was happy about it. Some of the older staff whispered, the boss is spending too much time around the cleaner. Others warned, people will talk. She's replacing his wife's memory. Aira heard the whispers, but she stayed silent. She knew why she was there, for Rihan. Yet somewhere deep inside, her heart began to tremble each time Aira looked at her a little longer than before. And each time Rihan held her hand and called her Mommy, she felt a mix of warmth and guilt, because she knew she wasn't. As the sun set that evening, Aira stood by the window, watching Rihan sleep peacefully for the first time in years. Aira stood behind her, his voice low and sincere. You've brought light back into this house, Aira, he said. I don't know how to thank you. She turned slightly, tears in her eyes. Sometimes, Mr. Mehta, all a child needs, is love. And somewhere deep inside, they both felt something neither could say aloud, that fate had brought them together for a reason far beyond a simple cleaning job. But what neither of them knew was that the past was about to return. A secret buried in this mansion would soon change everything. To know what happens next, subscribe to our channel, and don't miss Chapter 2, where love, loss, and destiny collide in ways you'll never forget.